Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and I just got back from the DJI Mavic Pro unveiling in New York City today, and a lot of you wrote in asking about my thoughts on it, so I figured I would do a quick video to tell you what I saw. This is going to be a first look and not a review because I haven't had it in my hands long enough to give a real accurate assessment as to its features and capabilities, but I was impressed with what I saw on the surface, and hopefully we'll get one in a couple of weeks and we'll really put it through its paces to see if it will live up to what they're selling. But what this is in a nutshell is a foldable version essentially of the Phantom 4 drone. It has most of the same features, but it's half the weight. So it comes in at 743 grams, that's 1.6 pounds with the battery, versus the Phantom 4, which is 1,380 grams or 3 pounds. And again, it has a lot of the same features. So it has a 4K 30 frames per second camera on a 3-axis mechanical gimbal. It also has the front hazard avoidance system that we saw with the Phantom 4. So it will do some hazard avoidance as it's doing the following features that we looked at in that drone. So the same thing that we did on the Phantom drone, you can draw a circle around something in the app and it will then follow that object or person or thing or whatever as it moves around. And those forward sensors will keep it from hitting things, presumably, while you're flying it around within reason, of course. So that's nice to see on there. It's got a 1080p video downlink to the app, and they've got two different ways to control it. So you can have your mobile phone control it exclusively. That's going to limit your altitude. And they also have a controller that is a tinier version of the controller that they usually pack in with the Phantom 4. Really tiny, pocketable little thing. You slide your phone into the bottom of it, then it has some really nice, precise analog controls for driving the drone, essentially, as you fly it about. The range on that controller is 4.3 miles or 7 kilometers in the United States, provided that you have a clear line of sight. Of course, obstacles will diminish that stated range. 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers in Europe. On the phone control, though, you only get about 262 feet of range because it's going over Wi-Fi, and they limit the altitude to 164 feet or 50 meters maximum. So you will have some less capabilities when you're using the phone exclusively to control it, but unlike the Phantom drone, which requires the controller, this one will work without it if you just want to do a quick aerial selfie or something while you're out in the field. There were a couple of other interesting components to the product. The first is that they have some gesture controls. So if you are standing in front of the drone, you can lift your fingers up and it will then recognize that gesture and then go into a follow mode automatically. So you don't have to keep looking at the app. It'll find you based on your gesture and then follow you around. There's something else the guy did with a square with his hands, and that also prompted the drone to take a selfie picture. It gives you a 3-second timer, the little lights blink, and it'll take your photo, which I thought was kind of cool. I don't know how practical that's going to be, but I think people might end up using that just to show it off. The sport mode will go up to 40 miles per hour on it, but that will disable the forward-facing optical sensors to prevent it from smacking into stuff. So you definitely want to be careful when you have that mode activated. And if you really are into the full flight experience, they have also released today, or announced today, a pair of goggles that you can put on so you can get a first-person experience. And those connect to the drone wirelessly with the same technology they use to send the video down to your phone. So this is better than Wi-Fi. It's using the same technology they use for their controller. And it's got two 1080p displays in stereo, not 3D though, but it looked pretty cool. It's like having a big, huge screen in front of you. You definitely want to make sure you don't get motion sickness though, but it's probably the best way to pilot it when you're going at the 40 mile per hour speed. Now there are 3 price tiers on this one, so you can spend $749 and get the drone and a battery. Then you will control it with your phone exclusively, which means you don't have the altitude and range you might get if you spend $1,000 on the version that gives you the drone and the controller and the battery. They also have a $1,299 version that gives you the drone, 2 batteries, a controller, and a bag. So if you want the full out and about version, you might want to go for that one because you can charge one battery while the other one is up in the air. So that might give you longer enjoyment of the product, I guess, while you're out in the field. So I'm really curious to see how well this thing will do out in the real world when it's getting buffeted by winds and all the other stuff that it might encounter while it's flying. One of the things that I've been very impressed with the Phantom 4 about is just how well it can handle unexpected things while it's in the air. It's just amazing how stable a flight platform it is. And I'm curious to see with this drone, I think the propellers are not as large and it's certainly not as heavy. I think it might get bumped around in the wind a little more than I'm experiencing with my Phantom 4, but we'll have to wait and see until it comes in to take a final judgment on that. But I am really impressed with the form factor. It is very tiny and very portable, which is something the Phantom 4 certainly is not. And I don't bring the Phantom 4 out all that often because there's so much stuff to lug around. I got this big case for it with the controller and all the other stuff that I bring around with me. Having the ability to fit the drone and 2 batteries essentially and a controller and something really small. I think it would actually fit in the backpack I typically use when I go out on a shoot. And I could probably fit a video camera plus the drone in that bag. I could never even think of doing that with the Phantom 4. It feels very well built too. It doesn't feel cheap. So it's got some really nice materials on it. It's got some metal. It's also got some very hard plastic. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart. My big question also will be what happens when it crashes, because those arms move and who knows what will happen if it hits the ground the right way. But I think a lot of the computer controls they put in are probably likely there to prevent a crash and have that happening at all. But again, that'll be something we'll have to test when it comes in. But overall, I was impressed with the form factor and the limited amount of stuff I saw with it today. They certainly know how to make some decent drones, and I'm really eager to check it out for more detailed review in a few weeks. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.